Hola, Paco, ¿qué tal? Spanish 101, the first day of class. Hola, San Diego, and that's all I did. That's how it started.
Beautiful.
But I do know a little more as you've experienced, a little more of the seasoned language, like I told you.
Yes.
Now, is that mainly American Spanish,
No.
Mexican slang, or
Maricón? No,
it's pretty
it's
much?
Latin
But
American.
chica is American, or
No,
Mexican.
it's Mexican. Because, well, we have some, it's like here. They say, how many words there is pray?
Oh yeah.
Winner.
Oh sure, of course, yeah. And there are some that you're more likely to find here than elsewhere. But the thing with me in foreign languages is because I really don't get how bad it is, I can say pretty
Exactly.
much anything. If it doesn't like,
Well, funny story. One time I'm living in Mexico. I go with my cousin to a radio station. They're doing an interview with him. Argentinian, Spanish with Argentinian accent and the Argentinian vocabulary. And for us, cabron really doesn't mean anything. But in Mexico, cabron is very popular. And he said cabron again. Oh my God. They were scrambling.
yeah, I've done that actually. What was it? It was some Yiddish that I used with a constituent once. I could tell by the look on their face that it was like, oh, it was not for polite conversation.
One time, I'm talking to this woman. Frank has sent it to me because I was in the refrigerator. And the woman was very irate and reasonable. And I said, but lady, I wanted to say, but ma'am. When I said, but lady,
Yeah, that's
it sounded like,
no, that is
listen to me.
exactly.
Oh my gosh, she says, what did you say? And then of course she called Frank. And Frank that day was my friend. And Frank says, you have to understand, English is something that he needs to say, man.
Yeah.
I know because he was horrified after he said it. He came and told me.
I have a funny story. Like, I was raised in Milwaukee, which was a Polish Catholic neighborhood. Like
Is that what Usler?
More, yeah. What is Usler? Usler is Polish.
Polish.
And actually, there's a German town as LAR, and so my family. Anyway, so while in school, I would listen to there were a lot of different students, very unique. And one day he walked up to me with his like, oh. Rooster. Well, I mean, it doesn't always work. And you know what I've done with people also, which doesn't work at all, is because English doesn't have gender for noun. Sometimes I play with gender like a camp sort of thing, with, you use the wrong gender, but I can tell with Spanish speakers, no, nothing. It doesn't have like here with the gender of an
In Mexico, cajeta is goes, like we said, and cachucha is a slang for cap, baseball cap. Cachucha, cajeta. Oh my God.
Your what? The horse is out. It's another one.
The horse. Hopefully the horse isn't out.
The horse isn't out. Or if he's out, he's way out.
7 o'clock. Take your position. Yes, sir. Oh, you are next to George. Yes, sir. Peter, your collar is different. Okay. Take it. Well, I guess they knew that I was coming. That's why they decided to come.
Just like you. Boom. Somebody's been like a grinder on the gears. It's interviews.
With that name, it should be.
Streaming, but they still want to rent it to you. It's kind of hard to package. But it's supposed to be an excellent movie. You talk about somebody who just couldn't learn his lesson. And I have realized
All right, I'll call the meeting to order. Is everyone's microphone on? Okay. Stephanie, would you lead us, please, in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, may we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Bergstein?
Present.
Commissioner Kirpies? Commissioner Gerfinkel?
Here.
Commissioner Gregoire?
Here.
Commissioner Harker?
Here.
Chair Maggio?
I'm present.
Commissioner Sains?
We have a full body tonight. We have the agenda, which is tonight, October 13, 2016. Has everyone had a chance to look at it? And if so, is there a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Move, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none. We have the minutes of September the 22nd. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at those minutes? Are there any additions or changes?
Motion to approve?
There's a motion for approval. Is there second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, none.
I abstain, as I was not.
Abstention, one abstention. 6 approvals, 1 abstention. Okay. All right, public comments. Do we have any speaker slips?
No, we don't.
We do not. No one is going to talk to us tonight. Okay. All right, we will go directly now to the manager's report, and that will be, it'll be our look-ahead calendar, and that report will be given by Peter Nguyen.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
This evening, you will receive an update on legislative items and occurrences from this last year, and that'll be given by Hernan Molina with the city. Looking ahead, our next meeting on October 27th, you'll receive a presentation on West Hollywood's social service programs. These are the new programs that have just been adopted for the next coming 2-year cycle. and that will be given by David Juni with the Social Services. That same week, and please make a special note, that Saturday, October 29th, there is a mandatory meeting for all boards and commissioners. That's the annual Congress, and that's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. here in council chambers. That's Saturday, October 29th. The next meeting will be on November 10th, and that is the study session. That meeting will not be televised. We'll be down on the floor, and we'll be doing our priority study session, setting the items for the priority plan, and then also reviewing last year's items, and also doing a little review of the building blocks program. On November 12th, this is also not a regular meeting. However, I believe that this meeting is also mandatory, and this is on ethics training. So it will be, again, here in council chambers from 10 till noon on November 12th. And then on December 8th, we do have our update on short-term rentals. That will be presented by Jeff Abel in our Code Compliance Office. And I believe that we have the meeting still on here of December 22nd, although I believe the commission canceled that meeting at the last meeting. So go ahead and strike that off of your look-ahead calendar. And this concludes my report.
Excuse me, I didn't hear the last, what are we striking off, which meeting?
I believe that the commission canceled the December 22nd
That's
meeting.
correct, yes, I
Yeah, so you
remember
can go
that.
ahead and strike that off.
All right, are there any questions for the director?
I have one.
Please.
Just kind of follow up. At our last meeting, I had a question about the property at 1301 Sweetser, which had been Ellis'd out, and I see a television dish, and you said that it was approaching the end of the length of time where the owner had to keep it vacant, but approaching isn't the same as we've reached the end of time. Has anyone checked on the status of that building to see if he is, what he might be doing because he is such an ethical landlord?
Sure. And in fact, I think that there might be an item on the council agenda that would be creating a tract map and converting that into condos. So the property is 1302 to 1310 Sweetser. It is at it's after 5 years at this point, and so he does have options to return it to the market without having to provide the same rents to the and offering it back to the same tenants as before.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions for the manager?
Manager Noon, do we have any more copies of the look-ahead calendar? I didn't seem to have one in my packet.
Yeah, we can get you a copy. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners' comments? This is your time,
If I may.
please.
I would just like to express how proud I am of West Hollywood and our Rent Stabilization Department for putting the Russian translated newsletters on the website. I think that that's going to give a great opportunity for those interested that English isn't their first language to fully understand what the city's doing in regards to one of their most important life necessities, their housing, and will give them an ability to make very strategic decisions for themselves and to live just a more informed lifestyle. So thank you guys, and I'm very proud of everything that we've done thus far.
We thank you very much, Commissioner, for taking the lead on that topic, and you see it was fruitful. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to go to new business. I think we see an old friend over there. Hernan Molina. ¿Cómo está? Nice to see you.
Good evening. I was going to say council members. That may be sometime. Tonight is honorable commissioners.
All right, well, Hernan is going to give us the legislative update, and then we're going to, the appropriate thing is after the update, then we'll receive and file the report. Thank you very much. You may proceed.
Thank you very much. Well, it's a pleasure for me to be here. As you know, the legislature just adjourned for its 2-year regular session in California. For members of the public that may or may not know this, the California legislature operates in a 2-year regular session. So the 2015-2016 just adjourned. But before I go any further, I just want to share with you, because although some of you know what I do and what I do with my colleagues at City Hall, the city actively monitors several bills that are introduced. In every legislative session, there are about 5,000 bills introduced. That's taking into consideration the bills introduced in the Assembly and the Senate during the 2-year session. And therefore, there is a lot of work that we do. The city has a legislative a lobbyist, an advocate in Sacramento. Her name is Helene Meshard. She has a firm that is staffed by 2 other people who work with Helene, and we work very collaboratively with her. Once a week we host, during the session, we host a weekly call, and we discuss the bills that have been introduced. Because, you know, and again, as for educational purposes, when bills are introduced, they are assigned to committee or committees, policy committees, by the rules committees, the rules committee of the Senate or the rules committee of the Assembly. Because we have legislative priorities, and the City Council, after 32 years of being a city, we pretty much have been doing this for those many years. We know what are the issues that really are of importance to the city: rent stabilization, tenancy issues. Housing is obviously are at the core of those issues, but it's also land use and housing development, congestion, mobility, all those issues that are very important, and they are heavily discussed in the Assembly and the Senate. So we are very active, participating in the legislative process. At times, when we spot a bill that may have a negative impact, we obviously track that bill very closely as it moves through the legislative process. Bills are amended, as you are probably aware, and then at one point we advise the City Council to take a position either in favor or oppose, and we actively work with the legislators' offices to make sure that they know how the city's interests are being impacted, either in a positive way or in a negative way. I wanted to tell you, because most of you know me from the days when I was a council deputy. I was deputy to Council Member John Duran. I think all of you know me from those days. But for the members of the public that are watching at home, the issue of the Ellis Act has been a recurring one. And for the members of the public that are not aware, the Ellis Act is that law that allows landlords basically to exit the rental housing market, and with that cost, move to evict tenants. And upon paying, obviously, the relocation fees that the city stipulates following a state law. One of the things that we have heard over the years, as tenants are displaced, and nobody obviously likes to lose their homes, and it's a very traumatic thing, and we are very sensitive to that issue, is we have tried and have ongoing conversations with legislators to change the law. Unfortunately, in Sacramento, for this type of law to be amended, and all laws, but particularly this one, seems to be a very contentious issue, and majorities, which in this case will be a simple majority, are very hard to reach. This year, in 2016, we worked with Senator Ben Allen, who is the senator who represents our area, and we talked to his office about the possibility of amending the Ellis Act, because one of the aspects of the Ellis Act is that when you are in possession of a unit, and you are senior or disabled, you are entitled to a notice of 1 year to vacate the unit. Now, that only applies, as I said, to seniors and disabled. It does not apply to everyone else who may also be in the difficult position of having to vacate a unit. So what we tried in conjunction with the staff at the City of Santa Monica we tried to come up with some sort of compromise in which the noticing of 1 year would apply to every group. Unfortunately, despite Senator Allen's best efforts, there was no indication that a majority would even consider the bill in committee, and then the bill was dropped. So that's for the Ellis Act. This year, too, the city, and I have to say that I work with very talented people who know very well and much more than I do the terms of law, as I am not a lawyer. Alison Regan and Jonathan Holub in our Legal Services and Legislative Affairs Division, they work with Senator Allen as well in the city of Santa Monica to close a disparity that was between the Petris Act and the Costa-Hawkins Act. This disparity basically created a problem, which was landlords could come to ask for certification of what is called the maximum allowable rent, and the city had to produce that certification within 7 days. But because of Costa-Hawkins, we no longer track what the maximum allowable rent is. And unfortunately, it put the city in a situation that was open to liabilities and litigation. After almost 2 years of working with Senator Allen, with the legislators and the governor's office, the bill was approved in both houses, and the governor signed it into law. So congratulations to my co-workers in the legal services, because this really protects the city's interests and also does not lend the city to become a vehicle to create a problem for tenants or be abused by people who may not have the best interest. The other thing that I want to touch on, because your commission also focuses on housing, and I appreciate what Commissioner Garfinkel was talking about. You know, it's no secret that the state of California has a housing crisis. Today, 1.5 million units are needed to meet just the current demand without the projected demand 20 years from now. So there have been many efforts to meet that demand. Unfortunately, some of those efforts, as much as they have good intentions, they do not take into consideration the needs and values and understanding of how land use should be implemented at the local level. A case in point, the governor had a proposal called a by-right housing proposal that basically made housing approvals for certain projects somewhat of a ministerial approval. What that means is that at the local review process would be seriously curtailed and reduced. While the city did not take an active position on it, we worked very hard to make sure that the governor and partners in the state, like the League of Cities, transmit the concerns that these proposal could mean for the city. There is no secret either that the city council and yourselves are very supportive of building housing and very supportive to the needs of people who are in need of low and very low affordable housing in the city. But there are ways to go about it, and we thought that the proposal was not exactly the best proposal possible. The governor may, in the last year of his administration, may decide to bring a similar proposal next year, but we'll see at the time what happens. Another aspect that I want to mention to you, because I know you have also interest in housing, is that Senator Kevin De Leon introduced a proposal called the No Place Like Home. The No Place Like Home basically appropriates money that has been I can come up with the right word, but has been generated through Prop 63. Prop 63 was voted in 2014 by the state residents, basically putting money aside for mental health services. This money, this pot of money, is going to be allocated for the construction of affordable housing, because there is obviously a connection between homelessness, mental health issues, and since the state doesn't have billions of dollars at its disposal to start creating housing, somehow the money has to come from one place, and the legislature felt that the best way to do it was to go through appropriating some of the funds from Prop 63 and meet that very, very imperative need, which is to create affordable housing. Let's see. One thing I don't know that I mentioned, during the last 2 years, we monitored between 500 and 600 bills. And from those bills, and on Monday, the City Council is receiving, and you will see it tonight, or it's probably already available on the city's website, is getting a staff report with a legislative report that details for everyone to see what was the position taken on each bill, the bill number, the author, the content of the bill, and then what happened to the bill. We, as I said before, we were very active. We remain very active and committed to work with the Commission and the members of the community in protecting the city's interests and advancing the best legislative agenda possible for everyone in the committee, in the community. And at this point, I'm just going to wrap it up and welcome any questions that you may have for me.
Do you have that information for us in paper? With that, the bills? Do we have that?
Yeah, it's on the council agenda packet. It's available online as of today.
It's online.
Yes, at weho.org. Under city agenda package is item 2L. It's on the consent calendar.
That would be nice to have in our packet at some point, maybe. Are there any questions for Hernan? Robert?
Hernan, always great to have you here, and I want to thank you for your many years of service to the residents of the city of West Hollywood. So I have a question and then a comment. I'll give you the comment first. Is you talked about the work between the city of West Hollywood and Santa Monica and Alan's office to try and amend the Ellis Act. If there's a way to maybe publicize that to our residents, because we hear over and over, it is a traumatic experience to find out that you are losing your home through no fault of your own, and the city really has no control over that. So if we could maybe get the word out that while we understand that we as a city are trying to get that amended to make it less onerous, less difficult on the residents.
That's a great suggestion.
Yep. And then the question, although this doesn't really affect any West Hollywood property owners, I forget our former legislative, who was the woman?
Christine Menahan?
Yes. Used to track the statewide landlords were trying to carve another chink in the armor of rent control by rent destabilizing mobile home parks. And I don't know if you've heard anything about, I haven't read anything recently, whether there's been any success on the landlords or whether the rent stabilized parks are staying firm. Because the issue is with those, if a tenant loses their rent stabilized plot, then their mobile home becomes worthless.
I have not heard, and so that you understand how it works, the work that we do in Sacramento, where our city lobbyist is located, they follow with a software that is available to the public as well, paying the membership fees, called Capital Track. And all these issues are followed by keywords. So when a bill is introduced, an alert pops up. Like if you put rent control, then you get all the bills with rent control text or subject. I have not heard these during the last 2 years. We have not discussed it. It did not come up during the legislative affairs meeting of the League of Cities, which happens every Thursday. So while it could have happened, I have not heard about it. And I am personally very involved in the League of Cities, and I have not heard about it. I do attend the meetings in Sacramento, the policy committee meetings, and I have not heard about it. But that's not to say that next year they will come back. I just want to mention a couple of things that I forgot, and I apologize, Mr. Chair. And since Commissioner Kerpis is here and he's the district director to Assemblymember Bloom, we work very close with his office as well in a couple of bills that needed the perspective of a city like West Hollywood. And I have to say that we had a very good working relationship with his office. Assemblymember Bloom is a great advocate and certainly has always been open to understand or get feedback from a city like West Hollywood, Santa Monica, or Beverly Hills, which are part of his district. Chris Usler, and I also want to acknowledge the work of our rent stabilization division, Peter Noonan as well, and all the staff in the division, including Gloria, also participate at times in our calls, and they bring up issues that are of concerns to the resident, and we look into if there are bills currently addressing those issues, impacting those issues, or we go straight to certain legislators, and or even sometimes the staffers of the committees, the consultants, and we mention that this is an issue that is going on and propose it as legislative fix, if you will. So that's how we work collaboratively with our staff and also with the community.
All right, Josh, would you?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for your work and all the city staff that work on this issue or these issues. I know working in Assemblymember Bloom's office and my past involvement with the city, I mean, this city's on top of it. They follow all the legislation, and to cover 500 to 600 bills, as you mentioned, that's a huge amount of bills. I mean, it's quite a job, and it lasts all year long that you're following these, and there's little changes that they have to follow throughout because you never know when a bill is going to change, and it's difficult to know ahead of time what's going to change in a bill. So I appreciate all the work that the city of West Hollywood does on these pieces of legislation. And are there any things moving forward that you think that will be priorities or what the city will continue to push for in next year, or do you know that yet without the council getting this update?
Yes, we are working on reviewing, not necessarily revising, reviewing our legislative priorities. I have to tell you that I have been doing this for a while now. Because the legislative priorities are written in such a broad manner that cover pretty much the core values of the city, it's somewhat rare that we change much of the legislative priorities, but sometimes we do have to revise them. Like, for instance, 5 years ago, and I was looking at the legislative priorities for the last 6 cycles, which are 2-year cycles, and we had advocating for marriage equality. That's something that we can strike. Thank you, President Obama, for that, and obviously the Supreme Court. So, there are issues that come up, obviously. At the top of the list, one of the things that will continue to be a priority for the city is amending the Ellis Act whenever possible, making sure that housing is developed, taking into consideration the city's local government's needs, but also taking into consideration the different income levels of each community so that people can access affordable and decent place to live. We are all horrified by what's happening with homelessness in Los Angeles County, but by being horrified alone, we are not going to fix the problem. We all need to do something. And one of the things I want to let you know, and I had it in my notes and I omitted to mention, is that the County Board of Supervisors, which is another body that I personally monitor their agenda, Supervisor Ridley Thomas may be bringing a motion next year to place a ballot initiative in March of 2017 for a bond to create a revenue stream to fund the production of housing for all income levels so that the thousands of people who are living on the streets can access a place to live with wraparound services, because obviously housing by itself is not going to solve the problems of some of the people who are homeless. Has also to be social services.
Thank you. Gail?
Is there any discussion about legislation relating to the impact of short-term rentals on available housing?
That was a huge issue in 2015. It was again in 2016. Senator McGuire was the author of one bill. Unfortunately, the bill got nowhere. There is a huge lobby by Airbnb and the other groups that are in favor of having that type of short-term housing, short-term rentals. Most cities have some sort of reservation about it. Some cities welcome, but they want to have more control because of the negative side of some short-term rentals, which is renters that are very transient in their stay, and they do not respect the rules of the building, and they alter the peace and quiet enjoyment of a building. So yes, that is going to continue to be an issue, but I can tell you, and this is a personal note, that the lobby will only increase because Airbnb is making money, but also a lot of people in those communities are making money as well. And some of those people who are making money are living in very limited incomes, so they're not necessarily millionaires making millions. There are people who, like all of us, who are working people who need some extra income, and they're utilizing those as even renting rooms, not necessarily the entire home.
David?
Is there any talk or efforts in Sacramento of either amending or repealing Costa-Hawkins?
Every legislative session, we hear some sort of rambling, if you will, about modifying it. It is a very difficult issue for beginners because most Republicans are opposed to it. And even within the Democratic caucus, there is not a majority to do so. So unless the Democrats were to achieve a supermajority status and have some even more votes to overcome those Democrats who vote on that issue with Republicans or do not vote, it's very unlikely that that will happen. Those are the same issues that we are facing with the Ellis Act modification.
Stephanie?
Thank you for being here, Hernan. You kind of touched on what I was going to ask, and that is it a partisan vote primarily? Anything to do with the Ellis Act or Costa-Hawkins? Are we seeing primarily Republicans voting for it? It's across the board?
Well, the majority of the Democrats are more inclined. However, I think there are big differences between Democrats who represent San Francisco and Democrats who represent Modesto. They are the blue Democrats. This is kind of the insider's language, and the centrist Democrats, and then you have more of the liberal wing of Democrats who represent more progressive areas, who have more of a base of support. But you also need to understand that the apartment association, the landlords group, is a very powerful group that has advocacy efforts in almost every county, or the most populous counties have some sort of representation, and they play a very heavy role in how laws are amended or not.
So even with the 1 year, upping it, because most buildings, I should imagine, have at least one senior in it. So they're going to have to at least keep the building open. They're going to let the senior just...
Well, if you remember, and I know you were a resident, 1234 Hayworth, which is something that we all, and I was working here, we all were very distressed about it. That was one building that had 1 or 2 seniors left when the entire building was vacant. One of the things that we said to the legislators' offices is the entitlement process is never shorter than 6 months. In some cases, we are looking, especially when buildings projects are appealed, we are looking at 9 months, and perhaps even if there is litigation, 1 year. So why not extending the noticing to 1 year? But there was no support for that.
Thank you.
Alexander?
I just want to say how honored I personally am to be in the presence of a TV star. and to just note that
It made him blush.
I must be doing something right then, right? No, I mean, it's just the simple caliber of all city employees is just so tremendous, and how progressive we are and in front of the ball we always are is just something that I wish was easier to explain to more residents, so they really knew the caliber of people that are taking care of their best interests, and that in every corner that they seem to turn over a rock where they thought no one was looking, we already turned that rock over a few times. So that's all that I have to say is I commend you for all the work, and like Josh said, 500 bills is tremendous. So thank you. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Well, Hernan, I don't think of you as a movie star, but because you're one of the regular guys of West Hollywood that has lived here for a lot of years.
Thank you.
And been very committed. And of course, we always appreciate your expertise. Many years ago, we would have the state lobbyist come to us about 3 times a year, and I'm glad we're able to keep it local. That means more. To make a special note on 1234 Hayworth, that was something very close to my heart because my parents lived there, and the stories were indeed horrendous. I remember one gentleman who just sat there on moving day and died. He didn't know where he would go. It was so shocking, and it has tremendous impact when you're a person 80, 90 years old and they tell you, goodbye. And they knew that those individuals could not wait 5 years to come back and claim their apartment again because they were not going to live, really. And that is part of the story that's so sad.
And, removing anyone, especially the elderly, and I have an elderly mother, although if she heard me calling her elderly, she's going to kill me. She refuses to accept it, but when you are moved away from your community, from your pharmacy, from your stores, from your neighbors, you may get a great unit 12 miles away, but that's not guarantee or satisfaction that you will be in a place that is called community, where you will commune with other people.
It's not close enough.
And community is very different than having an apartment. You can have a great apartment and have no community. And I think the issue, which I think we all love about West Hollywood, is that we are a community. Now, like all families, we have our dysfunctionalities, and we all have known each other for many years. We can all fight like siblings, but we all unite in core values. We may have different ways of addressing those core values, but we all believe in pretty much the same way. So, I do want to mention, because you're all very kind, we are all friends, and for acknowledging the work that I do, but certainly this is something that, while I am the liaison, I am coming here to give the report, certainly this is not something that I do by myself. Andy Lobano is a great person, staff member, Peter, Nuna, and Gloria, Chris, everyone in Rent Stabilization, Halim Meshar, Maxine Mantel, who is someone who you probably never heard, but works with Halim in Sacramento. They go to the hearings, they go to the legislator's office, they transmit the city's message. And, we also have state partners. The League of Cities is an invaluable tool for us. And we partner with organizations. Doing the legislative advocacy requires building coalitions, and that is something that all of us doing this work enjoy, and we do it with you at times, because sometimes we call you to ask you to write letters and contact legislators. So thank you very much for also the work you are doing here.
Are there any further questions for the gentleman?
One
Josh?
question that just came to mind. Excuse me. Speaking of coalition building and working with League of Cities and stuff, I know a lot of the tenant, they tend to be tenant rights organizations, even though they're more housing broadly. But do we, and I know they're mostly based in San Francisco area, have been around for a long time. Do we have any local coalitions that, or local organizations that we form partnerships with? I only recently, and I don't know anything about them, but I only recently heard about Abundant LA or Abundant Housing LA. Are you familiar with that organization?
No, I'm not. But you know, one of the organizations that is part of the history of West Hollywood is the Coalition for Economic Survival, and they are pretty much the organization and a bridge to other organizations. Some of these organizations or coalitions are very loosely assembled. The city's staff, Alison Regan and Jonathan Holub, who are our staff attorneys, are actively participating, I believe with Peter Noonan as well, in what is called the Rent Stabilization Consortium. And this is a very active group, very committed group to protect the rights of tenants and also advocate when there is problems with the state law and make sure that the state legislators understand how this will impact rent-stabilized communities.
Well, I just would like to add that I've lived here my entire life, and I planned, I remember what my father used to say, I'm not leaving till they dial 911, and that's kind of how I feel about this beloved city. So it's so exciting to know we have such a team of people who care, and we're always trying. I wish one day the city could like expand with land and, you know, become 5 square miles, 10 square miles. That's not possible, and we're trying to do everything in 1.9 square miles. It's a remarkable place.
When you take a look at, and I will just wrap it up, but when you take a look at the amount of bills that we monitor and the issues, though, the city is involved with, that gives you pause, because while we are 1.9 square miles, we are known not just in California, but across the United States for our progressiveness and also for how much weight we carry. I can give you examples of HIV legislation or legislation related to HIV and AIDS, LGBT issues, gun control, women's issues, trafficking, things that obviously our council has championed, but also members of the community have been very active. And that's why, you know, 500-600 bills in the scope of 5,000 bills a year. Those were the bills that we just followed, but it doesn't mean that we are not aware that there are many other bills lingering around that may go nowhere. Thank you again.
All right. Any further questions? No. Thank you so much again for being here.
Thank you.
We appreciate
My
your
pleasure.
time. All right. Just a little note, the commissioners have the Rosenberg Rules of Order. I don't know what happened to Mr. Roberts. I think he's been, he's old-fashioned. But we have Rosenberg, so I'm sure everyone will like looking at the Rosenberg Rules of Order. All right, we'll go to public comments. I don't think we have any, or do we? No?
No, we don't.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, Rob?
Mr. Noonan, I just wanted to, you mentioned that the ethics training is a mandatory meeting. I do want to mention that if you're not able to attend that mandatory meeting, you have the joy of taking it online. I was out of town one year for that, and you have to sit in front of your computer for a certain amount of time before you're allowed to step away from the computer. So while the meeting might be mandatory, if you are unable to attend, there are ways to fulfill that obligation online.
Did you say to pull it off online, you said?
Yes, you can take the ethics training online if you aren't unable to.
Right. Okay, thank you. Josh?
I just wanted to mention that I went to the Southern California Association of Governments Housing Summit a couple days ago that was put on by SCAG. And
Where was that, in Los Angeles?
Yeah, here in Los Angeles. But SCAG represents Orange County and all of LA County, and I think even Imperial County, or the counties out there in San Bernardino, that area. Or San Bernardino and Imperial County. So it's a very, very large area, almost all of Southern California. San Diego cooperates with them, but they're a separate organization. But it was a really good half-day summit on, basically it was entitled Mission Impossible, Meeting California's Housing Challenge, and it talked about debunking the myths around affordable housing. When people say, oh, it's going to cause more traffic, or it's going to, all they're going to build is luxury, or all this, and they basically laid out how we respond to those, and here are the facts to back that up. And I'll try to get from SCAG. They're going to compile all the notes and everything from the summit, and as soon as I get those, I'll distribute them to Peter and Laura, and they can get them to all of us. But it was very, very interesting and productive. You go to a lot of these things, and it's just complain, 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 here are the problems, and then, go home, try to figure out the solutions. And this actually had some solutions and giving people direction. And these are all city council members from all of these different areas that will go back into their own communities and build coalitions and support for moving some very focused legislation and ideas forward.
All right, thank you. That was very informative. Gail, do you have something for us? No? David? Stephanie?
Yes, good evening again. There are the two other commissions to which, and boards to which I am the liaison from our commission, are having special events this coming week. On the 26th, I was just looking for the time, the Disabilities Advisory Board is having their annual awards. Second here, I had it. 18th Annual Disability Service Awards, that's here in the chambers, and it begins at 5 o'clock on the 26th, which is Wednesday, and there's 5 o'clock, there's a reception, and then their meeting starts at 6 o'clock here in the chamber. And I understand that they're having the Johnny Mercer choir, children's choir, again this year. They had it last year, and it was spectacular. These kids are all partially sighted or blind, and their voices are spectacular. It was really a wonderful evening last year, so anyone who's interested in attending that, that is Wednesday, the 26th of October at 5 o'clock. And then on Thursday, which is also the night of our meeting, the Historic Preservation Commission in the city is hosting the annual Historic Preservation event at the Schindler House this year on Kings Road. And it should be very interesting. It starts at 6, so maybe you could spend 45 minutes there and then come over to our commission meeting.
Is that the 27th?
That is the 27th, Thursday the 27th.
All right, we'll put that on.
It's a shame that they're scheduled at the same time, but scheduling it was supposed to be in May originally, and it ended up now. But at least we're having it, and the Schindler House is a very special, historically preserved piece of architecture that we are honored to have here in the city of West Hollywood. So those are my two events coming up, and I hope that all of you will be able to attend either one or both of them. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, real quickly, she left out one very important part of one of the events that she just mentioned, the October 26th Disability Advisory Board awards. Commissioner Harker is actually one of the honorees that evening. Congratulations, Commissioner Harker.
I was trying to be discreet.
We don't believe in
Thank you,
that.
Josh.
Well,
That's for advocacy, which I always feel everyone can do, and many people do, so thank you.
well, we're glad to applaud you and to commend you. You do give a lot of time, and you should be acknowledged.
Thank you.
Alexander, you have something for us?
Well, I just wanted to say that to all those that observe the Jewish calendar, Happy New Year's and Shana Tova.
Thank you very much. All right. We have a staff. Peter, do you have something for us?
Yeah, I have a few comments.
All right.
Thanks. Thank you, Commissioner Kerpes. So we will happily distribute those notes. I had wanted to be there at the summit. I did send one of my staff. I had a conflict. It was the same day that the rent consortium that Hernan mentioned that I'm a part of met. And so I was in Santa Monica on Tuesday meeting with representatives from rent control and rent stabilization programs at Berkeley, San Francisco, Los Angeles. And this year, We were not joined by folks from Oakland or East Palo Alto, both of who have typically joined us in the past, but we were joined by San Jose. San Jose has recently looked at increasing their protections and increasing their programs. So, for instance, they did allow increases up to 8% in the past, and their program goes back to 1979, same year as ours. They recently, the council reduced that to 5%, so it's still fairly high. They are allowing banking, which is a little tough at that high of a rate, but it's a step in the right direction. And the staff were there learning from the other rent jurisdictions there in the room. So it was a really great meeting. One thing to be aware of in this coming ballot, and interestingly, is that there's 5 cities in the Bay Area that all have rent control on the ballot. Oh. Cities including Alameda and Mountain View will be deciding this November if they will be rent controlled or not.
Will those be designed closely to the 5 major rent jurisdictions, which is, Berkeley, West Hollywood, Santa Monica, San Francisco, Palo Alto?
East Palo Alto.
East Palo Alto.
The cities would be Santa Monica, West Hollywood, Berkeley, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. East Palo Alto does have a program, but it's not as strong as the others, just similar to Oakland, who is also strengthening their program. Berkeley was suggesting, actually, that the consortium to come together with some sort of guidelines or to build some sort of a how-to for new cities so that we could inspire or at least direct or provide some guidance on some of the best practices, if you will, for rent control and rent stabilization. Now, Berkeley, it sounds like, they've been contacted by the cities of Portland and Seattle, as well as other cities nationally, to talk about rent control. So not just in the local area there in the Bay, but even greater. So that might be something that Berkeley spearheads coming forward. It's certainly interesting, and it's certainly interesting times right now with new programs on the ballot.
Have we ever considered inviting some of the other rent jurisdictions here to us, maybe Santa Monica? I know at one time we flew to Berkeley. It was very exciting and very stimulating because they were the leaders. But have we ever thought of perhaps getting together with some of the other?
Yeah, I've heard of those stories of the past of the groups coming together. It hasn't been something that we've looked at recently, but certainly staff, we are in communication and we do get together once a year. But outside of that, we hadn't given any thought to bigger events.
Okay.
That's something that the commission perhaps would like to discuss as a recommendation to the council to engage the other cities and possibly coordinate some sort of event like that?
It's very interesting. West Hollywood, our own personal commission, on 2 occasions did host conferences for all the 5 jurisdictions. And we did it here in West Hollywood, once at the London Hotel, and I think once at Plumber Park. I thought it was very successful to meet the various commissioners and to talk about the various issues. I think it's great because there's a lot of support that is needed, and I think that's when you get it. But it's something that maybe we could discuss or bring up at our study session and see if there's any interest in maybe doing that again.
Manager Noonan, would that be something we can add to our study session?
That's the role of the commission. This is your study session coming up in November.
Yes, we can, and when we have our study session, I'm sure we're going to point out those objectives again, and that could be one thing we could post or come together on. I like the idea. I thought it was very successful. It was nice to see people come from all over the state who were very interested in these topics. I thought it was helpful. So we'll bring it up at the study session. Thank you for supporting that.
Fantastic.
All right, so any further comments from staff? All right, All right, so be it. I will then adjourn this meeting to our next regular meeting, which is October the 27th, 2016, right here in the council chamber.